needs help. So I invite you to join me and my team on this mission to bring hope and smiles to millions of families worldwide.
Our Move and Connect program helps children to build their focus, social skills, and confidence through fun group activities. We mix movements and then teamwork games to help children learn how to connect and cooperate. Go ask your partner. So you guys have to work together. You're gonna slow down for your partner. With HFS Power Play, children will improve their attention, coordination, and emotional regulation to help them learn and grow with confidence. Our trainers have a lot of experience to work with children who need extra supports with learning and emotions. Hey, this is fun. Can I? Good. And then you have to wait. My name is Yuna. I like dogs. And then today, we're gonna learn how to work as a team. So you guys have to work together to build a house together. All right? Okay, go! Go, Lucas! So fun, right? So fun. I like it.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our parent workshop series on social skills. My name is Fiona, and I'm the Senior Manager of Business Development at Cogleap. Today is the week 3 of our series. As our children grow, conflicts with friends, classmates, or online peers can be stressful. Things such as arguments, misunderstandings, or tension that leave your team frustrated, withdrawn, or avoiding social situations can be overwhelming to all the families. Tonight, we'll show you how to coach your team through these conflicts, spot healthy versus unhealthy interactions, and know when to step in. In this session, we'll focus on handling conflict in peer groups for teens ages 13 to 17. For those who are new to our company, let me have a brief introduction of our parent company and our subsidiary operational company. So our parent company, Cognitive Leap, which develops all the technologies, was founded in Los Angeles in 2015. Our operational subsidiary, Cogleap, it was launched 4 years ago, has already supported thousands of families. And this is a picture of our urban center. We provide both clinical services and non-clinical services. Our clinical services include ABA therapy. I believe most of the families are familiar with this. It's a one-on-one clinic-based support to improve behavior, learning, and independence. We also provide a VCAT assessment that can track and measure attention and impulsive control. We also offer HFS and Move and Connect. So HFS is a brain training that can help with focus, emotional regulation, and self-control. And our Move and Connect program, which is an approved program through Regional Center of Orange County, provides social group classes to play, move, and build social skills. Now, for today's session, we'll begin with Dr. Knapp's presentation, followed by a Q&A session. So we encourage you to ask questions during the webinar. And please feel free to type your questions in the chat, and we'll address as many questions as possible afterwards. Now, let me introduce our expert today, which is Dr. Albert Knapp. He's also a director of our ABA program. He is a senior clinical psychologist specializing in autism, ADHD, behavior issues, and learning disabilities. He's also a board-certified behavior analyst, doctoral, and registered play therapist supervisor. He wrote a book named Parenting a Child with Autism Spectrum Disorder, which you can purchase through Amazon. Now, let's give him a warm welcome. Dr. Albert?
Thank you, Fiona. Appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. Hope you're having a lovely day thus far. Just a clarification on the questions. If you have a question about something I just said that you didn't understand, please unmute yourself, interrupt me, and ask that question. But if it's just a different question, like Fiona said, please hold it to the end, and you can always type into the chat right away so that way you don't forget it. But thank you for having us today. So today we're going to talk about why teen conflict happens, understand healthy and unhealthy ways to resolve peer conflict. You parents will learn some coaching strategies to help your teens, and also kind of when to intervene and when not to intervene. So why do we even care about peer conflict? Why is that even important? One of the most important things is peer relationships shape our identity. If you think about your close friends, you probably have some commonalities with them. And doing things together, spending time with each other, those relationships has helped shape who you are. So having healthy peer relationships can help you have a more positive image of yourself and create a what we call like a positive ego strength, which is a fancy way to say positive self-esteem. For the next point, no, sorry, go back, Piano. So essentially, conflict, when there's conflict, it does impact your self-esteem. You feel bad about yourself, feel negative about yourself, and oftentimes conflict creates emotional regulation difficulties. We don't manage our emotions as smoothly as we can when there's conflict in the situation. Also, in terms of teenagers, we also want to be mindful of social reputation. If your teen is constantly getting into conflict with others, that's going to make a negative social reputation, and it's going to make it harder for them to repair those relationships. So we want to make sure that if conflict occurs, it's handled swiftly and appropriately to help prevent a negative social reputation. And then learning how to resolve conflict is just critical life skill development. There's no way to avoid conflict completely, but there are ways to manage conflict and resolve conflict that are healthy, that will help individuals throughout their whole life. So let's all take a memory trip back down to our teenage self. So 13 to probably like 21. And think about who we were. Most of us are probably different than we are today, and that is developmentally appropriate. That would be what's expected. Something that we probably cared about very, very much at that age is how we were perceived by others, especially our peers. And this was evident in like the music we liked, in the activities we did, in the clothing we wore, in the way we styled our hair. Everything that we did was very highly sensitive to our peer groups. We wanted to fit in, we wanted to be like our peers. And that is what teenagers do. Also, the emotional part of our brain, the right side of our brain, the right hemisphere, develops faster than our logical reasoning side of the brain, which is the left hemisphere. So in our teenage years, while our emotions are quickly getting overridden and we're going through puberty and we have all that activation on the right, we are going to make more emotionally based decisions more so and more quickly than we are for our reasoning brain, our logical based decisions. That's going to come later when our frontal lobes are fully developed, which comes around the mid-20s. So we have an overactive emotional brain in our teenage years. All this to say, being in a peer group and having friends becomes central to who the teenager is in terms of their identity. And even very small disagreements that a parent may hear about, may think they're very tiny, can feel very, very important, very big to a teenager. Oftentimes, they are blown out of proportion. So what are some common sources of teen conflict? So one of the most common things is exclusion or being left out, including hearing about being left out or knowing that they were left out. Gossip and rumors, two of the most deadly weapons that teenagers can use to help cause conflict. This current generation, and probably a little bit before, lots of miscommunication happening through texting. It is very hard to convey true tone on texting. Not everyone is socially savvy with emojis, and not everyone uses the same type of grammar or syntax on texting. So mixed communication is very common when texting, and as you can probably imagine, your teenager loves to text. That is probably their preferred form of communication. And then last, any romantic interest or jealousy over romantic interest can definitely cause conflict, or just jealousy over like a new friend entering the group, or maybe a current friend maybe saying they have a new best friend or making new friends. That type of jealousy can cause conflict between teens as well. So conflict is not new in teenagehood. It has also happened in younger kids. But what's different about teen conflict is a lot of it is more indirect. It's not like, for example, when kids are 5, if there's conflict, the kid's going to come up and push you or hit you saying, "I'm mad at you," or "Why'd you do that?" It's very direct. Teens don't do that. They start gossiping. They start hinting at it. They may even directly say, "Oh," like a snide comment, but blame it on somebody else, because that would be more indirect than having the comment be directed from them themselves. The social consequence feels greater in teenagehood. You can't just, apologize one time right after an event and have it be accepted. There has to really be not only the words of apology, but also the behaviors of apology in order for teens to really accept it. So there are greater social consequences when there's conflict. Also, adults tend to be less involved in teen conflict. Teenagers have a lot more time with their friends alone. And if a teenager doesn't share with their parents what's going on or a conflict that's arising, they may not even know about it. So they're not going to be getting involved. And all that to say, there's just more complex social dynamics involved in teenagehood. For example, there's not only friendship, but there's relationships. There's all different types of relationship. They can be romantic, they can be casual, they can feel more intense or intimate. There's a wide range of complexity in social dynamics in teenagehood, which further complicates how conflict happens and how conflict needs to be resolved. So there are several different types of pure conflict. Miscommunication is probably the biggest one. Just a teen misunderstanding what someone said, or someone saying something and they didn't mean to say it in the way that they said it. So you can kind of go both ways. A person not understanding, or the person saying it not in the best way. Relational aggression would be aggression within a relationship. Doesn't mean like physical aggression, but essentially doing or saying mean things that are meant to hurt another person is what relational aggression means. That is very common in peer conflict. Any sort of social exclusion, so feeling like they're not part of the group anymore, or again, like there's a new person that comes into play. That causes a lot of pure conflict. Aging myself, but maybe you all seen this show, Mean Girls, the movie. Well, now there's in multiple times. You can see the original, you can see the Broadway play, or you can see the remake. But essentially, the new girl Katie joins a new school, and now instead of 3 plastics, there's now 4 plastics. And then one of the girls in the plastic gets kind of outs a little bit, and then she takes revenge on like the new girl Katie that came into the group. That's a really good example of like pure conflict and the social exclusion happening in that regard. And then there's values or loyalty conflict. So again, like friends becoming better friends with somebody else, and then that being a personal attack on the new one. That is very, very common in peer conflict situations. So another big form of conflict is social media. Now with social media, it is very easy to create conflict within teen peer groups. I mentioned this already. Any sort of messages that are sent via social media doesn't always have the right tone, or it's very easy to intensify the tone. Group chats can intensify disagreements. Not everyone is attached to their phone all the time and can respond in real time. So if there's arguments happening in group chats, someone may not get to that group chat until maybe 15 minutes, 30 minutes, hours later, and there's this 15, 30 plus messages to kind of get through, and it's very upsetting and things are misconstrued. It's almost impossible for you to go back and unweave everything and tease out what was said and not said and what people were intending. So it intensifies any disagreement tenfold. With social media, conflict also spreads really quickly. What may have been something private that happened between two people can very quickly get out to the whole class, the whole school, and then people start talking about it and acting on it, and people are upset a lot faster. So conflict spreads way more quickly with the advent of social media. And additionally, any drama essentially can become public knowledge in the sense where more people find out about it, more people are talking about it, and then everywhere you turn, people are bringing up the disagreement or the fight that's going on, and it makes the person that's getting excluded or feeling the pressure feeling worse about themselves. So how would you know if your teen is experiencing kind of this, like an excessive amount of peer conflict? Because every teen is going to have some. But some of the major warning signs are withdrawal from friends. So not wanting to hang out with friends or friend groups that they used to. That's something that could be a warning sign. Any persistent irritability or just mood changes in your teen could suggest some peer conflict. Avoiding school or activities that they used to enjoy or particular activities with a particular group of friends could definitely be a sign about peer conflict. And then if they are having some social interactions and they're coming back from the social interactions very distressed or upset, that could potentially be a warning sign of some peer conflict that occurred. So how do you know if something is healthy or unhealthy conflict? While all conflict can still make the person feel bad, it can still require some repairing to be done. In a healthy situation, there typically is some sort of direct discussion only with the people involved. So not a group chat, a private chat, whether in person or text or on the phone, doesn't need to be face to face. And then essentially respect is there. The people listen to each other, they try to figure things out, they're willing to resolve the conflict. So there's attempts to repair in a healthy conflict situation. In an unhealthy conflict situation, oftentimes it goes from blaming, humiliation, or bullying of a person, and that gets exacerbated. Oftentimes other people are thrown into the mix to kind of bandwagon or jump onto the bullying or humiliation. There could also be additional kind of aggressive remarks made to exacerbate a smaller situation. And then essentially in an unhealthy conflict, there's ongoing exclusion. The person continues to feel excluded with not maybe with the original friend group that occurred with, and then maybe even other peers that were not part of the original conflict. So what can parents do to start to help their teens when this is going on? The easiest thing to do is offer validation and listen. It's going to sound like a soap opera, and it's going to sound probably like, wow, my teen is blowing this out of proportion. But try to remember, we were all teenagers once. We all felt like arguments with our friends were the end of the world. So validate that. Validate their experience. Validate that, that they are upset. Validate that what happened was unfair or unkind, and listen to their explanation. Don't try to make them right or wrong. Just listen to what their perspective is, what's going on, And they will ask for help if they need it. And if they don't, you can always offer like your perspective. And we'll get more into when to do that and when not to do that later. But essentially offer guidance instead of taking over the conversation. So don't problem solve immediately, but maybe share a time where you had a disagreement with a friend so they see that it happens to everyone. Offer some guidance on what they can do to help make it a little bit better. Help think through some solutions. Maybe offer some options for them to try. Role play. If you know the peer or the teen, try to role play out how they would respond if approached with a particular solution. And then provide them emotional support. They're going to be upset about it. They're going to be distressed. They're not going to be operating on all cylinders. So you want to provide them emotional support to give them that time to recover from the conflict. So essentially, we want you, the parent, to switch from diving in and rescuing your child, like you would do with a younger child. For example, your 5-year-old gets knocked into on the playground, you run over, help your kid up, and then you make the other kid apologize. From not doing that, not running in and rescuing, but coaching them through an appropriate solution. Encourage them to be independent, meaning you can practice what needs to happen with them, but they need to go and do it with their peers by themselves. So you want to encourage them to be independent in that regard. You also want to ask guiding questions. You want to ask them, you kind of want to ask the question to get them to the right answer. So if you know that Susie is upset at your child because your child told a secret to another friend that Susie confided in them, a guiding question would be, why do you think Susie might be mad? And they go, well, I don't know. Well, do you think that her parents getting divorced was a secret? You already know that that's probably the answer, but you're asking a guided question to get them to acknowledge it. When the teen can come up with a solution on their own or figure it out, they feel more successful and they feel more likely that they're going to more likely take action because in their mind, it was their idea, not their parents' idea. And then probably the hardest thing is you're going to have to support their decision making. Unless it's very dangerous, don't support that. But even if it isn't the decision you would do, you kind of have to give them the support to make the choice as long as it's not going to hurt themselves or hurt the other person. Don't let them do anything illegal or dangerous. But if they're like, I don't want to be friends with Susie anymore, even if you and Susie's parent are best of friends and that like hurts you, you kind of have to allow that to play out. And you're going to have to accept their decision. So what can you do? The very first thing to do in this situation when you're helping teens resolve some conflict is to listen first. So don't give an immediate solution. Listen to what's going on. Reflect back the feelings that the teenager is feeling. Even if you don't think the feelings are valid, that's irrelevant. You just want to reflect back the feelings that your teen is sharing. You want to ask a lot of open-ended questions. You want the teen to talk about what happened. There's a good chance that when they talk about their story, they're going to share more facts with you and less opinions. And then you can help them kind of tease apart what's a fact, what's an opinion, and help guide them to a good solution. So you need to be very open-minded, ask a lot of open-ended questions, and let the teen tell the story. So with that, the second step is identifying the real problem. What actually happened? What's the actual real problem? How did each person in the conflict see the situation? This is something that probably would be hard for your teen, for them to understand how the other person would experience it. So that's where you can come in and try to model what that would be. Point out the emotions that are involved, not only in your teen, but in the other teens involved, and what role each person played in the conflict occurring. Because it takes two people to have a conflict, not just one. And taking responsibility and acceptance of your behavior will help them resolve the problem. And then you want to teach some conflict resolution skills. The first thing is calm communication. No one can get anywhere if you're going to be yelling, screaming, being aggressive in your tone of voice or bossy. You have to be able to speak in a calm and collected manner, and that may mean not doing it immediately. You also want to help your team with listening skills. You want them to be able to really use active listening to see what the other person is saying. You're not going to resolve a conflict if all you're going to do is tell the other person what you want. You have to hear their concerns, take responsibility for any appropriate behavior that you did, and move forward from there. There also has to be a way of compromising. You want to be able to help your team realize that it's not just going to be their magical solution. And it's particularly harder for individuals with any sort of neurodivergence. They often think that their solution is always the best solution. And while it might be the best solution, it may not be the solution that the other person would accept. So teaching them to compromise would be a very valuable skill for them to have conflict resolution skill. And then the last thing is you need to help them focus on repairing relationships. It's very easy for individuals to just throw away a friend over a conflict in teenagehood. But especially if your child has a hard time making friends, keeping the few friends they have will be very important. So you do want to help them learn the value in repairing the relationship and why that would help them. And even if they can't repair it in a day or two, they can work on it, 3 to 4 days later into the conflict. So one really good way to work on conflict resolution skills is to use I statements. And essentially, an I statement is made of these 4 components. I feel blank when blank because blank, and I would like blank, which would be the resolution. So I'll give an example, and then I'm going to give you guys a moment or two to think of an I statement that you could put in the chat box, and I'll go through them in a moment. So I feel hurt when, and I'll talk to a friend, you talked behind my back about something I told you because I confided in you as a secret, and I would like you to keep my secret in the future. So that would be a really good example of an I statement to help an individual share with their friend and repair a relationship. So I'm not going to make anyone read their I statement out loud unless they would like to, but if you want to take a moment or two, we have time for probably about 2 minutes to put in the chat box an I statement. Try to use these 4 leading sort of phrases: I feel, when, because, I would like, and I'll take a look at them and I'll read off some of them that meet the criteria. So 1 more minute. Hopefully we'll get one brave person to put a I statement in the chat box. Thank you, Shanaz, for starting it off. Could you potentially finish it up? Like, I feel betrayed, and then when blank, because blank, I would like blank. Michael, I feel sad when you slander me because it is not true. I would like you to stop. Perfect. That's a great I statement. You identified a feeling, you identified the behavior, you gave a reason, and you gave a potential solution. Very good, Mike. So Michael's was, if you can't see the chat, I feel sad when you slander me because it is not true. I would like you to stop. Well done, Michael. All right, well, we'll move on to the next slide. Thank you, Michael. Sanaji was good with that. I feel betrayed because you said that was not true. You said something. I'm presuming you meant you said something that was not true. So what would you like, Shanaz? That would be the last part. You have to kind of give like a solution that would work for you. Do you have a solution you can type through? The I would like part? And while Shanaz is figuring that out, this may not have been super easy. So imagine you guys, fully formed adults, having maybe a little bit of trouble having these four elements go into a statement, and how you really need to coach and practice with your teens, maybe a little bit more if they're neurodivergent than typical, but essentially, this is a hard thing to do. And to have a really appropriate I statement, you really do need all four of those elements. Yep, and Snaz, that would be a good ending. I would like you to stop that or stop seeing each other. Yeah, you can give like two potential solutions. Good, thank you. I appreciate both of you, Michael and Snaz, for participating. Fiona, you can advance the slide. So the next thing to help your child with your teen with is emotional regulation. Teach them it is totally okay to pause before responding. Oftentimes when we feel upset or attacked, well, not oftentimes, all the time, our flight or fight response kicks in, and we either run away, say nothing, or we viciously attack back. Taking a pause and just taking a deep breath can help settle that instinct, essentially, and give the person some time for their reasoning brain to respond. If emotions are too high in that moment, saying, I can't talk about this right now, I'm upset, and taking space is the next best thing. Sometimes it's also helpful to talk to someone first. So maybe they can't talk to the person in the conflict with, but they're willing to talk to somebody else about it. This could be really good or really bad. If they talk about someone else in the friend group, that friend may start gossiping, unfortunately. So ideally, it'd be best to talk to someone that's not involved in the conflict or would not go back to the person in the conflict about it. But essentially, having your team talk to somebody about the situation first could be really helpful. And then essentially, you want to avoid reacting immediately in the situation. Most teams don't have the cognitive ability or the wherewithal to solve a conflict in real time right when it happens. So adults have a hard time resolving conflict in the moment it happened, right? So we don't want to have those unrealistic expectations for our teens. Oh, that texting trap. Yes. Oh, our teens today love to text. I'm sure you all can see the little graphic with our teens. That's probably what they look like right there. Just on that phone all day long, sending messages and doing things on that phone. So the biggest thing to keep in mind with texting is tone is very easily misunderstood. I'm sure you guys had situations in adulthood where you texted and someone misunderstood what you said, or you used the wrong emoji and it changed the tone of the text message, right? Messages escalate really quickly. It's instant. It goes right away, almost as fast as you can say it. It's sent through the internet and to the next person. And especially in a group chat, it could definitely get blown out of proportion because more than one people see it. Also, the moment it is in any form of written communication, it can be shared and distributed with others. Screenshots can spread. So that is something to keep in mind, that that is something that our teens now have to deal with, that most of us that are adults now never had to deal with. We never had to deal with any of our electronic communication getting spread around because when we were teens, the internet was new and it was just coming out, and there wasn't such thing as screenshots getting spread around all the time. And then essentially, it might be hard for the teen to realize this, but talking in person is always going to work better to resolve a conflict. A lot of teens are uncomfortable with that just because they don't do it often. They love to talk on their phone, not what they want to do, but conveying to them the importance of in-person conversations would be better. And then you have to work on repairing friendships. They have to acknowledge the mistakes that they've made. They have to take responsibility for what they did and offer sincere apologies for what happened. They need to learn to respect the boundaries of their peers. They may have said something that really hurt them, or sometimes humor gets misunderstood. And they have to recognize that that's something that they cannot continue to do if they want to keep the friendship. And then sometimes you have to accept the outcomes. If you had a really close friend and a really big conflict, that friend may not be a close friend anymore. And that is part of the hard part about resolving conflict, is accepting that even if the conflict gets resolved, it doesn't mean that the friendship goes back to the strength that it once was. So you have to accept the outcomes. So when teens are excluded, what can be done? So validate the feelings, let them, it sucks to be excluded. So validating how they feel about that would be an important first step. You want to encourage broader friendships. So you want to encourage them not to get down the dumps that they're having a conflict with some of their friends, but maybe encourage them to start to build up friendships with some of their other acquaintances or other people that they know. You want to support their resilience, it is hard to deal with conflict. And they might feel like every couple of weeks they're getting into an argument with a friend. So you want to support their resilience in pushing through and continuing to work to resolve conflicts. And then you want to promote activities with other teens. So essentially, you want them to expand their circle out. You're good, Fiona. You can go to the next slide. What should you not do? So you don't want to contact the other teen directly. That would be social suicide for your child. So do not do that. You also don't want to hover and monitor every interaction that they do. That is your teen is going to push you away, and they're going to become more secretive. So you need to give them some leg room, some leeway to try it on their own, and they are going to make mistakes. Don't force friendships. I see this most often when the parents are friends, they try to make their teens be friends. This works when your children are younger. It does not work when they get to their teenage years. You cannot force teens to be friends with other people just because you're friends with the parent. And then you should not dismiss their concerns. Even if you feel like they're blowing the concerns out of proportion, you can't dismiss them. You have to accept them at the value level that the teen is giving you if you want to get anywhere with them. When should you step in and really help your teen? You definitely want to step in whenever there's bullying or harassment. Those are things that do carry the weight of severe mental health issues if they continue, and it could be, in some cases, can be illegal. So you want to get involved whenever there's true bullying or harassment of your teen. Any threats to your child's safety or any imminent danger or harm to others, you want to get involved at that point as well. If you see any severe social isolation where your teen is not wanting to come out of their bedroom, or is lumping around, not doing anything, or really just regressing to a younger version of themselves, any of that severe social isolation you want to get involved with, as well as any mental health concerns that could come up. the two most common things that will occur is depression and anxiety. So anxiety, very anxious, nervous, and worried about things that are happening. And then depression, very, very sad and irritable about things that are happening. Any weight loss or weight gain is a sign of serious mental health concerns. For females, if they stop having their period, is a sign of mental health concerns. Any eating irregularities is a sign of any serious mental health concern. So any of those behaviors that you see, you need to step in on and provide support and get help over a professional. So what kind of support do you need to provide for your neurodivergent team? So you want to explicitly teach social rules. They do not pick up on social nuances, so you need to be very explicit about teaching those rules. You want to role play conversations, helping your neurodivergent team practice how a conversation can go can be very, very helpful in helping them learn what to say and do in a conversation. Oftentimes, people with neurodivergence like predictability. They like to know what to expect. So they would appreciate the opportunity to practice the conversation. And you may have to practice the peer responding in more than one way, so that could go in multiple directions. You also want to provide what's called like structured coaching, help them through different parts of the situation that is hard for them so they can feel successful. And then it might be helpful, especially if two neurodivergent teens are involved, to do kind of supported mediation, maybe potentially helping get the teens together to talk about it and being nearby. And if something's going awry, to jump in, stop the interaction, maybe point out some of the social cues that are getting missed, and then encourage the teens to continue talking. So essentially what you want to do is you want to validate the teens' feelings, ask them what they want to do, then brainstorm possible responses. And then at the end of the day, you want to support the teen's choice, even if it's not the choice that you were going to make, as long as it's not going to cause harm to somebody else, then you definitely want to support the teen's choice. And then for building long-term social skills, you want to encourage diverse friendships. You don't want your teen to just have one or two good friends. You want to have them have a couple of friends in adolescence. So that way if they have a social grievance with one of them, they have other friends that they can go to. Clubs and activities are a really good way to help build long-term social skills because by default, if you're in a club or activity, there's already a common interest. And that is the building block, the foundation of friendships. Any sort of team environment also helps build social skills. So any sporting team would be a really great thing. Even if your kid's not the most athletic, just being a part of the team can be really helpful. And there are, levels for every athlete. There's club sports and there's like travel sport teams, based on your child's ability. There's also sometimes really recreational themes. I remember when I was a teenager, I played what we called choosy church softball. Like no one was great at it, but we got together and did softball, and it was a fun time. I was the pitcher, and I was terrible. Sometimes the ball would roll over home plate, but that was choosy church softball. It was at my skill. And it was fun to get to interact with other people, and it was a low stress way to have some fun. And then essentially shared interests, common interests are the building block again of any social skills, any friendships. So in closing, before we get to questions and answers, just know that conflict is normal in adolescence. It's going to happen. Keep in mind a coaching perspective. You want to coach your teens, then do it for them. So don't rescue them and do it for them, but coach them through what could be done. Keep in mind that communication skills matter. Being able to discuss, teach them how to appropriately communicate using those I statements are really, really important. And then whenever there's going to be a safety issue or bullying or threats, as well as a severe mental health issue, you need to intervene because you need to make sure that your child is safe, and safety for other peers that they may know would be important as well. Alrighty, so we do have some time now to open it up to questions. I don't see any in the chat yet. I'm okay if you want to unmute and ask a question. Or if you prefer to be muted and want to type it in, I have the chat box up on top of my screen. I'll be able to see any questions that come through.
Okay, let me see. Did you see all the questions?
I don't see any questions. I'm
Okay.
scrolling. Yeah, I don't see any questions, Fiona. I don't know if you see questions and you want to read them, but I don't see any.
Okay.
Oh, here comes one. Okay, so Anne asks, as a parent who doesn't grow up here and can't help teens with social, how can we learn social here to help our teens? So I presume, Anne, you mean social media, is what I presume you're asking about. So you are not alone. There are a lot of adults that have no idea how to use social media. But believe it or not, there are free classes often offered at libraries to give an overview of social media platforms. There's also a great resource called cybercop.com. I will put cybercop.com in the chat box. CyberCop's mission is to help teens be safe in our digital world, and that person, or that, I think is a person actually. I believe that I met him several years ago. He may have expanded to other people, but it was one person originally. Essentially, there's resources there where you could get schooled and knowledge on social media in order to help your teen.
I think Michael has a question about adult mentor, if they can help with kids.
Yeah, so there are mentorship programs, whether it be an adult or a like peer, is very helpful. Some groups that I know that provide mentorship programs are Big Brothers and Big Sisters, which could be a helpful mentorship program. There's also what's the other one? I believe the YMCA, they have mentorship programs as well. If your child does have autism and they're a client of the regional center, there are vendors that provide usually like it's called tailored services, which would help individuals with like kind of social skills or life skills. There's also lots of vendors that teach social skills. One of the most popular social skills programs is Peers. And if you Google Peers UCLA, you'll get a list of all the certified peers providers all over the world, not just in California.
Can you see the questions,
Peers.
Albert?
Yeah, I'm typing it out, Michael, the Peers group. So Peers is the program for education and enrichment of relational skills. I'm typing it out for you, Michael. And you clarified your question, said you also mentioned to help coach teams. Oh, so a great program for parents would be Triple P Parenting Program. It's an evidence-based program. I'll type that in. If you Google that, you will also get a list of providers that are credentialed to teach that. And within the Triple P Parenting Program, it can teach you how to teach your teens social skills. Also, I just said it, the peers group, if your teen was in the peers program, there's a corresponding social coach class, and typically the parent would be the social coach. The parent learns the skills the teens are learning and how to help their teens do those skills each week. For adolescents, the group is 14 weeks long. For young adults, the group is 16 weeks long. The only difference between the curriculum is the young adult program has dating added, where the teen program does not have dating added. And if your child does have a diagnosis of autism, there are many peers providers that are vendors with the regional centers. So it should be, you can just talk to your service coordinator about having the regional center cover a peers program and ask for a referral in your neighborhood. And you're welcome, Anne. Shanaz asked, if your teenager uses too much texting, should you limit their time or take away their phones? Ooh, that is a wonderful question. I get asked that all the time. So the best thing to do when there's a phone involved is to have very clear expectations before the teen gets access to the phone. And I recognize that it may be a little bit too late for that, but that would be the best thing to do. And what I like to do, what I encourage my teen parents to do, is to have what's called a cell phone contract. I put the CyberCop website in there before. He has a cell phone contract that he uses. He also has a social media contract. Essentially, you sit down with your teen and you create a agreement on phone usage and social media usage with very clear consequences for breaking the rules. When you get in the situation of being reactive and just taking away their phone, you're going to create more conflict between you and your peer. So if you're like most parents and you did not have clear expectations set up in the beginning and you feel like your teen is abusing the privilege, I would definitely have a talk about that and then reissue a social media contract or a texting contract or a cell phone use contract to get on the same page and then go forward with those consequences. And then we have probably just time for one more question. So Naz asked, how old for boys to be concerned about a peer? I'm really sorry, I don't quite get what you're saying. Can you clarify your question? You're also free to go off mute and just speak your question if that's easier. So these concerns, Shanaz, can come up. Thank you for clarifying. These concerns can come up really at any time. Usually we see it around like 12 and 13. When your child starts to go for boys and girls, when puberty happens, it's more likely to come up because their emotional side of their brain is getting overreactive when puberty happens. So while puberty doesn't happen at a set time for all individuals, I would say for girls it's a little bit earlier, usually 11-ish. Boys a little bit later, maybe 12 to 13. But it's not a set time for all. But the onset of puberty is definitely where it's more likely to see more conflict come up. But conflict truly can happen at any age. All right. Fiona, I'm going to hand it back to you if you want to give the group a heads up on how they can stay engaged with us and maybe give them heads up on our talk next week.
Thank you, Dr. Knapp, for such an insightful
You're welcome, Fiona.
discussions with our parents. I believe everyone has learned a lot from you today. And I also hope all of those tips and suggestions will help you support your kids navigate all of those conflicts with their peers. So for the last few minutes, I just want to introduce how you can reach out to us. On the right side is our contact information. You can call us or email or book a free consultation through this QR code. It's also shown, this button is also shown on our website. You can also book a Move and Connect trial. Like I said, Move and Connect is our social group class that will help the kids to improve their social skills. I believe Dr. Knapp has mentioned a few options for your kids to choose from. And Move and Connect is also one of the options that can help your kids improve their social skills. And yeah, so I hope everyone have a wonderful evening, and I look forward to seeing you again next time, because next time will be our last session of this parent workshop series. And I hope everybody here can join that session as well. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.